Round 17 team lists, and look, this one's a doozy. Yeah, look, for lack of better words, you're probably stuffed this week. You've got the Dogs on bye, the Tigers on bye, the Sharks on bye, a lot of guys named not to play after Origin, a couple of injuries, a couple of guys benched. Look, without further ado, let's just get into it because it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one this week. So first game up, we've got the Dragons and the Warriors. Now, for the Dragons and the Warriors, yeah, not too much for the fantasy side. I mean, look, there's a few noteworthy things. Jack Bird comes back in. Now, if you have Jack Bird and you've held him through that couple of weeks of resting and the bye round, good job. Ride him to the end. He's going to be a good option unless he picks up another knee injury. If you've got Connolly Lemuelu, who plays for the Dolphins, he's been named on the bench. So we'll get to that one soon, but you might be looking at moving him to Jack Bird. I personally think that there are some better options, but we're probably going to do a segment on where do you trade Lemuelu to get the best value out of him. In the back line for the Dragons, look, it's all pretty straightforward. You could make a move for a guy like Lomax if you wanted a pod. I don't think the upside's there personally, but he's there or thereabouts. Ben Hunt's demanding a release. I don't think that really changes him too much for fantasy. Like, you wouldn't have been buying him for fantasy anyway. He plays Origin as well. If he moves somewhere else, it's probably not an improvement on his fantasy prospects, just because he plays such a dominant role at the Dragons, so I can't see anything there. Jacob Little, look, he's been playing pretty good minutes. He's inconsistent here or there as well, so probably steering clear. Blake Laurie's come back a little lackluster, but he could be a guy you have a look at some point. Jack DeBellin's back. You got Jack DeBellin. You're very happy. If you don't have Jack DeBellin, you might want to buy him now, actually, because, look, he's a bona fide gun at that lock spot, so this bench too, it's not threatening him too much. These guys, Musgrove, Molo, Murdoch, Wasilla, they're not going to steal that many minutes from JDB. On the Warriors side of things, I just keep thinking about how RTS is going to be in this team next year and how unstoppable they're going to be. But look, they're going well this year. Luke Metcalf's interesting. His scores have gone 27, 37, 54. So he keeps that spot there. He could be a juicy option if you don't have him yet. Look, he's gone up in value a bit. I got on a few weeks ago, personally, and it was looking a little cagey, but he's really warmed up. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good buy run coming home. The other one is Sean Johnson there. If you don't have him, he's a gun. There was a young center in this back line for the Warriors last week who looked like he might have had some fantasy prospects, but we might have to wait a bit longer because he didn't get named this week. In the forward pack, yeah, it's pretty much an expected forward pack. For a teamless review, there's nothing really to talk about there. Go to the next game. We've got the Dolphins and the Eels. Look, this will be a good game. Both these teams are fighting for one of those top 8 spots. Both kind of on the fringe-ish in terms of their form. Parramatta in better recent form. The Dolphins started really good early. Hamaso backs up this time. He didn't back up last time. So that's a big one for anyone who owns him. Valence Tavare. Been a lot of talk about Brenko Lee. Getting moved early to the Super League, whatever it is there. Valence Tavare, he's shown more in a couple of games than Brenko has through this season, and that's more a compliment to Valence rather than a diss on Brenko. But, VTW, if you don't have him, the buy run's pretty good coming home. I'd be looking to buy him. And he's around that 300K mark. He looks like he's owning that spot. The other guy there is Braden McGrady, and look, he's got about 1 try a game in reserve grades, so I haven't looked into his numbers too deeply, but he could be an option there. Look, their wingers are getting a lot of good ball at the Dolphins, and being outside Valence Tavare as well is not a bad place to be, just in that he's drawing in so many guys. So could be interesting, both these guys. I'd probably sit and wait and just watch Braden McGrady because he's going to have a good game to keep that spot. There are other options in the wings for the Dolphins, so we'll see how that goes. Couldn't agree with Isaiah Katoa. So these guys have been named to start in the halves. Look, Sean O'Sullivan is very close to a return. And actually, is he? He's not in the extent. Oh, yes, he is. Number 19. There we go. So Sean O'Sullivan, number 19. Live reactions. I haven't looked at these yet. But for O'Sullivan, he's the best half at the Dolphins. He's probably going to take one of those spots. And I mean, look, Cody Nick has been in fantastic form, but Isaiah Katoa feels like the future option for the Dolphins. So it'll be Sean O'Sullivan, one of those guys. My feel is it's Sean O'Sullivan and Isaiah Katoa, which means if you have Nicarima, you could be in for a rude surprise this week. He might move back to a bench utility role. He might move out of the team entirely. He might move to fullback if Hamaso doesn't back up. There's a lot of options here that could happen. I'd be moving on Cody Nikorima at this point. Like Parramatta's defense has been pretty good. You look at that forward pack for Para as well, it's coming back to full strength. I just can't see Cody being worth the risk this week and keeping a spot for the rest of the year. So I'd be looking to move him on right now. In the forward pack, Connolly Lemuelu, he's in that number 16 jersey. I am devastated. I'm absolutely devastated because I don't have enough trades to be trading out guys who are meant to be keepers right now. So, yeah, for Lemuelu, it's almost worth waiting a week and seeing what happens. You know, maybe they make some moves. Maybe is Ray Stone a locked-in starter at lock? I don't think so. Is Kenny Bromwich going to stay on that edge spot, or is he going to move into the forwards and maybe a Herman SAS goes to lock, or Stone goes back to the bench and Nichols comes in, or something like that. Like, I just think there's enough in this in terms of doubt where Lemuelu might be worth holding. But if you do have excess trades and you have no one else to move, then it could be worth moving on now. For the Eels side of things, look, Mitch Moses named to back up. He was always going to be named. They're sitting in 8th right now as well, so they're going to want to win this game. If Mitch is fit, he'll be playing this game. Parramatta just can't afford to throw away any games, and this is against the direct competitor for the top 8 spots. So, yeah, for Mitch, if you got Mitch, you'll be starting Mitch, but just wait and see how he goes in Origin. Because last time he played, he picked up some injuries, had that back injury, which is pretty bad. So we'll see what happens there. I wouldn't be going to RC as a fantasy option. He's got pretty good job security, but I just don't think he's that guy for fantasy. He's too expensive. You're a bit late on some of the other guys. So Gutho's had his form run. I just don't think it's worth it. Panasini, I mean, you're losing out on a lot of the big buys. Like, this Parramatta team has a buy in round 18. That's what I'm thinking about here. So I'm not super interested in buying any of those guys right now if you haven't bought them already. The one exception there is probably Brendan Hands, and I don't know about this Hodgson injury. So Hodgson pulled out at 10:30 a.m. on game day 2 weeks ago. He called up the coach, said, "Hey, I've got a neck injury. I can't play today. It's a bit stiff." He just hasn't come back. And Brendan Hands is there. Look, he's scored 30, I think it's 31, 36, and 52, something like that in his 3 games where he's played 80 minutes. So as a fantasy scorer, he's probably about a 40 average if we're being reasonably generous, which is not the best for an 80-minute hooker. He's at a pretty good price, but again, he's got that bye next week. And if Hodgson comes back in round 19, you get one good week out of him, and then you lose him again. So I just don't think he's worth the risk. If you bought him last week, then good job to you. You got 50 points in a bye round, and he plays again this week. Rest of this back row, look, Bryce Cartwright, Andrew Davey, 11 and 12. I just can't see. It's a coin toss, but I wouldn't be playing Madison off the bench when I've got Regan Campbell-Gillard, Junior Paulo, Jermaine Hopgood as my starting middle forwards. Why not run Madison on the edge instead of playing off the bench in the middle? And I'd bring him in probably over Davey, probably, because Cardi's been pretty good this year. And then Sean Lane, number 22. Let's not forget that. Sean Lane walks straight back into this team. So, yeah, I don't think there's a lot of job security for those back rowers if you were looking at them, if you have them already. If you haven't got Sean Lane, don't buy Sean Lane yet. Look at it for round 19 if you really want to do it. He's going to be a pretty good price at that point. And then Madison, don't do it. If Moses doesn't back up, Maddo goes to the halves for round 19. Maddo probably plays in the halves as well, and he has by round 18. So, yeah, just skip Parramatta players this week is my view on that. Next group here, we've got Panthers and Knights. This was a good game last time round, really close game. The Knights were on a bit of a weird form run, and they turned up for that game. They could do the same this time. We'll see who backs up for the Panthers. But on the Panthers side of things, look, Taruva had 16 tackle breaks last week. I don't think that's a reason to go buy him or anything like that. You've missed out on the major buy round with him. He doesn't play round 19. Just noteworthy. It's pretty cool. Tungo was another one. A guy I know, Jay-Z, he was talking about Tungo as a pod. Didn't pull the trigger because he's a coward. But, if he did, that would have been a cracker. Then Stephen Crichton, Brian Toe, Origin, Dream the Way. Jack Cogger, he got 74 last week. That was coming off a 48 the week before that. So we said a couple of weeks ago he's going to average 50. He's done better than that. He's averaging in the low 60s. So just in that time since we made that call. So, he's cracking it. If you got on Cogger, you're in a happy place. Look, a lot of people didn't need halves, so a lot of people didn't go for him and then for the hookers instead. But if you did get Cogger, bravo to you. In the forward pack, yeah, Fisher Harris, a bit of a flop. I got on him. He got me a 50 last week, but he's just been really underwhelming. And they've got a lot of guys there. So like Lenu, Lindsay Smith, even what's his name? Was it? They had another guy come in. Might have been Henry, someone like that. Another forward come in who played great last week as well. So yeah, he hasn't been that guy. If you got Hosking, he's out of the team now. He's in the 18th man spot. Just move on now. You know, you've gotten your time out of Hosking. It's over. It's finished. Sorensen, it's good news that Hosking's out of the 17 completely because Sorensen will keep that 80-minute role most likely. And look, those bench guys, Jamin Salmon could play on the edge for 15, 20 minutes. They do it. I don't love it personally. Gets him some minutes. He played well in the halves last week, admittedly. So I reckon he probably comes on for Liam Martin more likely. Yeah, Isaiah Yeo, he backed up and played 80 minutes last week. Last Origin game. So he might do the same thing this week as well. On the Knights side of things, look, that Knights backline is so clean. Like 1 to 5, I love that backline. For fantasy, it's very exciting. But also in real life, just good to watch. And we said that in the preseason previews, that they were just going to be a fun attacking team if their halves could do a job. Now, Ponga's on fire. I was a bit late to the party. I got him for 500k last week, which, you know, is sort of 80k more than what the real truth has got on him for. Still happy with it. Like he scored well. He's got pretty good buys as well. He's cracking it. I wouldn't be tempted by Dom Young or Bradman Best at any point. I think the bases are really poor for those guys, and they can score very low if they don't get those tries. Dan Gagai, Greg Marzhew. Again, you're a little late with Gagai, and look, Marzhew comes back into the team after missing the team bus. Could be juicy pods on the run home. Could be guys you look at for Lemuelu. Have a think about it. In the forward pack, if you have Phoenix Crossland, I was sort of thinking last week was that last week that you have him. You ride that last score and then you can move him on. This is probably now the time where he served his purpose. I mean, he's played 80 minutes most of the time at hooker, so it's not the worst thing. But yeah, forward pack's pretty unexciting. Dylan Lucas keeps finding his way into the team. I don't think there's the upside in that as a cash cow at this point. We don't really want cash cows who are injury contingent right now as well. So meh on that. Frizzell plays Origin. Bench, not interested at all. Storm, Seagulls. Now, these team lists, I wish we could see a Pappenhausen pop up at some point. He's gone to free agency in quite a few draft leagues. So if you're on one where he's on free agency, look, there's been reports that he might not be back this year at all. So if you need spots in your roster, you probably don't get him. But if he came back, he'd kill it. He'd kill it. Like, yeah. And look, going through this backline for the Storm, Cam Munster, there's a lot of talk about him right now. We're getting close to that time of year where he's a good buy. He's at a low price. I personally would wait until after round 19 myself. And look at it for round 20 if he backs up. Jerome Hughes has been a bit of a dud recently for fantasy. Still playing good footy in real life, but not even fantasy. Harry Grant, he scored that huge game in round 15. This could be the time to buy Harry Grant if you don't have him. It's a bit risky. Come off Origin. Let's see how he plays in Origin. He plays less minutes for the Maroons because Ben Hunt plays a bunch too. But yeah, no, Harry Grant could be juicy. I mean, I've got Harry Grant already, but that game in round 15 was fantastic. His scores and prices are probably going to start ticking upwards again. So yeah, get on and enjoy that. The Storm need the wins right now. Now, Loiero has been on a bit of a slide recently. I'd probably be moving him on. I think he's capped out a bit as far as price. So for Solomona, named to start on the edge, he had an underwhelming game last week. Really underwhelming. If you had the faith in him, he made that move. It didn't work. It didn't work last week. But look, it could work this week. And look, Manly's edges are very, very soft at the moment. They're leaking a lot of points. You saw how Parramatta carved them up last week. And you could say, oh, they were missing Origin players. All right, they were missing Tom Trbojevic and Daly Tree Evans. They're not really covering it as far as defense. Like, they're not the main defensive weapons. Admittedly, Jake Arthur is not as good at defense as DCE, but I think Sofa Solomon could have an explosion game this week. So if you have him, wait and see what happens this week. And yeah, he's at a price, but you're not going to lose that much. Bench, I'm not too interested in. Manly side of things, look, Tom Trbojevic not named to play. I doubt you have Turbo. If you have Turbo, you've probably benefited a bit recently. Is he on the extended bench? He is on the extended bench in jersey 22. So I don't think this changes much. There's a good chance he'll back up. There's signaling intent that he won't. Maybe he does. I mean, it's a Saturday game. He's playing center in Origin. My feeling is he wouldn't back up. You'd be silly to make him back up. But also, Manly are sliding out of the 8, so they kind of need him to back up. Well, we'll see what happens there. KO Weeks has been a dud for fantasy. If you held him for this period, you're not happy at all. Saab, Kula, Garrick, 104, and then 20 in back-to-back weeks. So he's up and down. I mean, look, when you bought him for 500K or 550K, and you knew that he was a try and attacking stat reliant option on the wing at the time. He's now a center. It doesn't change too much. He gets his hand on the ball a little bit more, but he gets less tries in that spot. So I personally think it's a neutral move for him going from wing to center. When he gets that center eligibility in fantasy, that's the plus side. So that's what I'm waiting for. Josh Schuster, DC, break even 85 this week, and he's back out from Origin. A lot of people talking about buying him. A lot of people are keen. A lot of really smart coaches are keen to buy DC. I'm not going to do it myself. I just think there are other options. I want to lock into DC personally, but there's upside to it. He could come out and produce a 90-point game any given week. So do what you'll do. Forward pack for Manly. Look, it's kind of looked like there's been opportunity here for months now, where we keep looking at this pack and thinking, oh, well, this guy's going to step up, that guy's going to step up. Kepi at the start of the year, he was averaging 40 for about a month of footy. We thought Sammy Fino, who's now the 18th man, we thought he was going to be the guy on the edge. Then Bullimore was getting named, and then Fino was getting named, and Bullimore was coming in on game day. Olakawatu looked like that guy, and then he's had some stinkers as well. Sipley, he scored a couple of big scores to start his season a bit late in the year. He's been hit and miss. Croker even had a big game last week. It's just not worth it at this point of the year. These are the kinds of guys that you look at in round 10 and think, oh, well, Manly's buys are not too bad. I might pull the trigger, but it's too late now. Just skip it. Do yourself a favor. Don't make that move. Broncos and Titans. This would be a cracker in real life. Just always good. Always good watching the Queensland teams go head-to-head. They've just got something different up there. They're going to lose Origin this week, but they do produce some good club games. So for this one, look, Broncos, Reece Walsh is there. He's one a lot of people moved off, but he's been producing recently. Let me know in the comments what your trades you're thinking about are going to be this week, or who you're going to captain this week. But look, for the Broncos, let's go. Reece Walsh, Corey Oates, Tony Staggs, Toby Farnworth, Selwyn Cobbo. Farnworth could be a guy you look at. I mean, the buys aren't spectacular or anything like that, but he's a bit of a keeper at center. He could be that option that you bring in for Connolly and Lemuelu, potentially. I'm not that high on it. I'll need to do some more analysis on this, but he could be a nice pod for you. In the halves, Adam Reynolds, he was a bit of a buy a few weeks ago after his injury game. Really lost some money. Could still be a buy now. He's just a bit of a tier below those real guns. And he always averages sort of between 49 and 52 on his career. So I'm just not that excited by it personally. And the forward pack, it could be time to buy Payne Haas. Payne Haas backed up well last time. Look, he's got the Titans this week, so there's a chance of some attacking stats. They can be a bit loose in the middle. I'm not totally against buying Payne Haas. You might have some spare cash as well from when Cleary went down. That could be a good move, actually. Go on Payne Haas if you need a middle, which you might, because you might have had a few too many Dogs players, or probably not Sharks, probably not Tigers. They're more on the edge, but it could be juicy. Look, the rest of the forward pack, the edges, I wouldn't buy Pierre Carra. Let's wait and see what happens with that forward rotation. Carrigan, no, just don't do that. Titan side of things, if you have Tanner Boyd, you're enjoying that. Look, there's not much to say about the rest of this back line. Forward pack, Wake is playing Origin now, so that doesn't help him as an option. Tino plays Origin. Barrels, he struggled to stay on the field. I'd like to see another week of him stay on the field before we even talk about it. Dave Fafita, he backed up so poorly after the last Origin. Look, he's got a Sunday game this week. So, Wednesday to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's 4-day turnaround. Counting that on my hand. That's embarrassing. But look, 4-day turnaround should be enough time, right, for Dave Feeder. And it's must win. Like the Titans last time they rested him for a lot of that game, they lost that game pretty closely. I think if he was on the field, they would have won that game. So if they're willing to throw away games and throw away their spot in the top 8 to rest guys, it's risky. It's risky play. I think he has to play this week, and he'll have a point to prove against his old team. And I'm not sure if he runs against Ricky or Piakura, but either of those guys with Ezra Mam or Adam Reynolds, that's an absolute feast for Dave Feeder. So if you got him, you got to play him on the upside. It's just a no conversation there. Rabbitohs, Cowboys. So this one's a cracker as well. This was a big game last year. It's a little dodgy this year. You know, the Bunnies been hit and miss recently. Cowboys are coming back, I guess. So other than their loss to the Tigers, they've been playing really good. For the Bunnies, Blake Taft's still in, Latrell's still out. Is Latrell on the extended bench? He is not. So, yep, Taft's still in. If you got Taft, bravo, you get pretty good scores out of him, actually. Johnston, Tass, Campbell Graham, Kenner. Look, Campbell Graham, you could potentially buy. He's probably not going to get big for Origin. If he's behind Stephen Crichton and Latrell, I don't know why he's behind Stephen Crichton necessarily, but yeah, if he is, then unless they lose this game, the Blues, and he gets brought in for, you know, being blooded and a bit of exposure, there is risk he gets picked actually for game 3, so probably not going to do that. Cody Walker, too much attacking required for his scores. Totola, look, Cook is going to play Origin 3, almost certainly. You know, Coruscant's out for a long time, and Cook is that first option. Even if he's on the bench, he's going to play Origin 3. Totola, it's a bit late on Totola. We were talking about him a lot a month ago. He could still do it, I guess, but I'm not into it. They have to buy around 20 as well. Kolomatangi is actually very interesting. We'll do some analysis on Kolomatangi. I like that one a lot, actually. Jed Cartwright with the Cheekham on the bench is scary. Cam Murray is at a nice price right now. The thing with Cam Murray you have to look at, though, is he's still sliding in price. He's got Origin round 19 and a bye round 20. So you get rounds 17 and rounds 18 out of him. And you got 2 weeks off. Probably lose some money as well. He's a post round 20 bye, in my mind. That's really easy. On the bench, not that keen. For the Cowboys side of things, look, there's some new names here. Valame, he went back to normal. We called him a trap, I think. And look, definitely wasn't recommending to buy him. And he went back to his sort of regular fantasy form. Still playing good footy, runs hard, and all that sort of thing. But he's not going to score a hat-trick every week on the Cowboys. Dearden had a pretty good game, but you know, we're not doing that. McLean, Granville. So what they've done here, the Cowboys, is they've named all their Origin players on the extended bench. So don't get too excited by Granville in the 9 jersey or Finafuaki in the 12 jersey, which would be very exciting if it was happening for real, or even this bench, because we've got Talangi, Cotter, Holmes, Nanai, Robson, jerseys 20 to 24. So I reckon Robson backs up. My feel is that Nanai may not back up. I think he's fresh back as well, and big game Origin. Val Holmes, I'm pretty confident he'll back up. They need him. Cotter, they've been putting Cotter on a nice bit, and they got Tamalolo back as well. So he might back up for less minutes. If you have Cotter, you play him, but yeah, I think he'll have a lower score this week. And then Talangi, Valame's playing good. And Kyle Felt came back and played good as well the other week. So they might rest him as well, depending on how they're thinking about this. Overall, you're not buying many of these players. There's a few guys on the south side where we're looking at them for post-Origin, even Latrell, for example. But, yeah, nothing right now. And look, that's all the team list. No, it's not. Sorry, we've got one more. The Roosters were a bit irrelevant this year, and the Raiders, who they've been winning. They're in the top 8. So let's pound through these guys. Look, James Tedesco, he's been rolling lately. He's named to back up. If he does back up, that's fantastic news for everyone. Joey Manu back to 4, not good, but he goes back to 1 if Tedesco doesn't back up. There's also the chance that Luke Keary doesn't play in this game, because Luke Keary broke his jaw last week. So I don't know why he's named. it's pretty crazy. And look, maybe they shut him down in a few weeks' time if the Roosters start looking like they won't make the top 8. Maybe Joey Manu goes to 6 then. If you got Joey Manu and he scores a couple of low games over the next few weeks, don't trade him out. Just hold on. He's that backup for 6 and for 1, and he's just been producing some massive scores. You know, that 99, I think it was, last week was just enormous. Sandon Smith named again. Sandon Smith had a really good game in real life. If he was in the halves with Joey Manu, I'd be very interested because Joey's not going to do that much kicking. Teddy's not. Jake Turpin certainly is not. So, yeah, Sandon Smith could be interesting in that scenario, but it's going to be late in the round when we find out. So, I'm probably skipping Sandon Smith, but there's some upside there. Forward pack. Look, if you have Nat Butcher, he's named in the 16 jersey. That's rough. That's really rough. Because Nat Butcher had been killing it. He had that game a few weeks back with 59 tackles, no misses. So you're stoked. You were stoked, and now you were in depression. He's on the bench. So is Gus Crichton. They're two best edge-back rowers that are on the bench. And then look, Egan Butcher and Tupinor are not bad players, but Crichton and Butcher, Nat Butcher, are much stronger players. So if Crichton ever gets a starting spot, he's getting so cheap. He's getting like embarrassingly cheap. And he's a top 10 fantasy player when he's played 80 minutes. I got nothing else to say there. Like I look at the team list every week and I go, is Crichton starting? I will buy him straight away. And he's not every week. Turpin is interesting. There's no bench utility for them right now. White's just a big middle forward. Nathan Brown is a big middle forward. They got a few guys on the extended that could come into that role. Just keep an eye on that, see if Zach Clay pops up or something like that. But Turpin looks like he might get another 80-minute game, which if you bought Turpin, you are cheering. You are absolutely cheering. He's been on fire. And then for the Raiders, Tomoko was getting to a nice price recently. He could be a guy you look at. Decent buys on the home stretch. Fogarty is in a bit of form. He's kind of like Reynolds. He's a bit below the real keepers. He's not that reliable either. Like he has some lower games for fantasy. He could be a good pod. I just don't think halves is where you want your pods this year. That's. And if you do go pod, you want to go like a DCE kind of pod, like where they're genuinely a bona fide gun. So yeah, nah. In the forward pack, Joe Tarpanay is sort of floating around. He's been a bit hit and miss. Corey Horsburgh floating around. Hudson Young. We're not buying many of these guys, but maybe Tarpanay. We'll have a deeper look into this because the buys are pretty good. So we'll see how these guys go. Now, that's team list review. That's a bit of a deep dive into them for fantasy. We do buy, hold, sell as well, where we go, I'll come in with actual analysis ready on these guys, and we'll do recommendations on all the cash cows to move and everything else. So let me know in the comments what trades you're thinking of making this week, who you're going to captain this week, and I'll see you in the next video.